The lights hit your rearview mirror. You pull over. The officer walks up slowly, shines a flashlight into the car, and after less than 2 minutes says the words almost every driver fears. "I'm calling the canine unit." Your heart starts racing. Now you're wondering, can they do that? Do you have to let them search? Should you explain yourself? Should you say no? What happens if you stay silent? And this is exactly where many people accidentally destroy their own legal protections, because the most dangerous phrase in America during a traffic stop is often something that sounds harmless. "Go ahead, I don't have anything to hide." That single sentence can completely change the encounter. One piece of knowledge can change how a situation ends for you. Subscribe now so you're prepared. Then share this video and tell me what you think about it in the comments. Once you give consent, many constitutional protections become much harder to challenge later in court. And most people say it because they're nervous, not because they understand the legal consequences. Today, we're breaking down what officers are often looking for during canine-related traffic stops, the biggest mistakes drivers make, and the exact words you can use to protect yourself without escalating the situation. Because during a roadside stop, your goal is not to win an argument. Your goal is to avoid giving away rights you cannot easily get back. Let's start with the first trap. A lot of drivers think they can talk their way out of suspicion, so the moment the officer mentions a canine, they start rambling. "No, officer, I swear there's nothing in the car. You can check if you want. I'm just nervous. My cousin borrowed this car yesterday. I've never been arrested." That flood of information often makes things worse. Why? Because officers are trained to observe behavior, nervous speech, contradictions, excessive explanations, sudden changes in tone. And remember this carefully. Nervousness is common during traffic stops. Courts have acknowledged that. But the more you talk, the more opportunities you create for misunderstandings or inconsistencies. A safer response is calm, short, and controlled. "Officer, I prefer to remain silent." That phrase matters because it clearly invokes your right to remain silent. Simply staying quiet without saying anything may not always provide the same legal protection depending on the situation and jurisdiction. You are not required to perform a roadside monologue to prove innocence, and silence is not the same as aggression. Your tone matters, your body language matters, your volume matters. Keep your hands visible, avoid sudden movements, do not reach around the vehicle unexpectedly, and never confuse asserting rights with acting hostile. Now here comes the second major mistake: consent. This is where people unintentionally waive their protections in seconds. The officer says, "You don't mind if I take a quick look, right?" That wording is intentional. It sounds casual, friendly, informal, but legally, consent searches can become extremely important. Because if you voluntarily allow the search, you may later lose the ability to argue that the search was unconstitutional. That's why one of the most important phrases you can know is this: "Officer, I do not consent to any searches." Notice what that phrase does. It does not insult the officer. It does not physically resist. It does not interfere. It simply makes your position legally clear. And here's the critical part many people misunderstand. Refusing consent does not automatically stop a search. If officers believe they have legal grounds under an exception to the warrant requirement, they may still search, but your refusal can still matter later in court because you did not voluntarily give permission. That distinction is huge. Now let's talk about the canine itself. A lot of people believe that once an officer says, "I'm calling the dog," the driver must just sit there indefinitely. Not necessarily. This area of law can get complicated fast. In general, officers are allowed to handle the purpose of the traffic stop: license, registration, insurance, warrants, citations. But courts have also ruled that officers generally cannot extend the traffic stop longer than reasonably necessary just to fish for unrelated criminal investigations without additional legal justification. So what should you calmly ask? "Officer, am I free to go or am I being detained?" That question is powerful because it forces legal clarity. If you are free to leave, the stop should end. If you are being detained, the officer is now stating that the encounter is continuing under legal authority.
Do not argue after asking the question. Do not say you have no right. This is illegal. I know my rights better than you. That usually escalates tension without helping you. Ask the question calmly, then listen carefully. Now here comes another major mistake people make. Once the canine arrives, they panic. Suddenly, they start moving around inside the car. They reach under seats, they open doors, they step out unexpectedly. That can become extremely dangerous. From the officer's perspective, sudden movements during a tense stop may raise safety concerns. So if you need to move, communicate first. Officer, my registration is in the glove compartment. Officer, I'm reaching for my wallet slowly. Simple communication reduces misunderstandings. And here's another important point. Do not physically block or interfere with a search even if you believe it's unlawful. People sometimes think constitutional rights are defended physically on the roadside. They are not. The roadside is not the courtroom. If the officer proceeds anyway, continue verbally asserting your position without resisting. I am not resisting, but I do not consent to any searches. That sentence matters because it separates non-compliance from physical resistance. Now let's address another trap, trying too hard to appear cooperative. This is where people say things like, "You can search everything, take all the time you need, I've got nothing to hide." But constitutional rights are not only for guilty people. The Fourth Amendment exists specifically to limit government power and define lawful procedures. Exercising rights is not evidence of wrongdoing, and courts have repeatedly recognized that refusing consent alone does not automatically create probable cause. That's important because many people surrender rights simply out of fear of looking suspicious. Now, another major issue: passengers. Passengers often think the stop has nothing to do with them, so they start talking freely. Bad idea. One passenger's nervous explanation can affect the entire encounter. If you are a passenger, stay calm and avoid volunteering information unnecessarily. And everyone in the vehicle should avoid conflicting stories. Officers are trained to notice inconsistencies immediately. Now let's talk about recording. In many places, recording police in public is generally protected by the First Amendment as long as you are not interfering. But laws and circumstances can vary, especially regarding audio recording rules in certain states. If you choose to record, do it calmly and visibly if possible. Do not shove a phone into someone's face. Do not make sudden movements. Do not turn recording into confrontation. The smartest approach during any stop is controlled professionalism. Now here's the framework viewers need to remember. When the officer mentions a canine unit, many people mentally collapse and start trying to talk their way to freedom. That usually creates more risk. Instead, focus on 5 things. Stay calm, comply with lawful commands, do not consent to searches, do not argue roadside law, and clearly invoke your rights when necessary. That means phrases like, "Officer, I do not consent to any searches." "Am I free to go or am I being detained?" "I choose to remain silent." "I want to speak to a lawyer." These phrases work because they're calm, clear, and legally meaningful, not emotional, not aggressive, not physical. And remember, laws can vary by state. Facts matter, and every encounter is different. This video is educational information, not personal legal advice. But understanding these principles before you ever see flashing lights can dramatically change how safely and intelligently you handle a real encounter. Because the biggest mistake people make during traffic stops is believing they must surrender rights in order to appear cooperative. You do not. You can be respectful without consenting, calm without confessing, silent without resisting. And in the next video, we're breaking down another major roadside trap: why sometimes officers ask drivers to step out of the vehicle even during minor traffic stops, and what the law actually says about refusing.